The sector minister, I think last week or last 2 weeks, 2 weeks ago, announced that some arrangements had been done for a consortium of sorts to handle our 5G infrastructure going forward. Now that has been called into question by the minority. They're saying that the deal is not in the best interest of the country and should be roundly rejected. But what really are the bottlenecks to consider? What are the issues therein that we are not paying attention to? So this morning we're joined by a digital entrepreneur who wears many other hats, but he has got great industry insights when it comes to our telecom space. Derek Lai is in the house with us. Derek, good morning to you.
Good morning, Francis.
I trust you're well.
Very well.
Been a while since you came through, but
I'm running on 4G. I'm good.
all right. So at the very outset, please help us understand in very simple layman terms what 5G is all about.
Okay, so for listeners listening to us this morning, if you've ever heard of 3G, 4G, 5G is simply the next step forward, which is the 5th generation of mobile network technology. And it's a step forward in basically making your devices faster and more efficient. And when I say faster and more efficient, I'm talking about your speeds, way faster than you'd have seen with your 4G experience. So even if you're downloading an HD movie, you could be doing that in a few seconds rather than a few minutes with 4G. Capacity-wise, it can handle a lot more devices. That means that very less congestion even in crowded areas like sports stadiums and concerts and things like that. And then also on the latency side, latency simply is trying to say that the time that it takes for data to travel from your device to the network and back, 5G has much more lower latencies, which makes things like video calls, online gaming, real-time applications, it feels more smoother, more responsive. So I can give you a typical use case of a 5G concept that was done somewhere in the US, where a band played a show from different parts of the United States in different states. So you have like a bass guitar in Florida, you have a drummer in maybe Houston, you have maybe a keyboardist in New York, and they played a live band at the same time. And that synchronization of sound, which literally did not appear to buffer, speaks to the quality of the network as compared to maybe some of the earlier internet experiences that people, or data experiences that customers have had in the past.
So this brings us to, yes, it's important. Yes, we need to be there. But correct me if I'm wrong, the world is moving beyond 5G to another level already as we speak, correct?
So people have already started talking 6G.
Okay.
But I think that people are moving fast. I agree. But there's also another question of where are we as a country, and where do we see ourselves going maybe in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah.
And so in making those analysis, then you can be able to ask yourself, are we technically left behind? Then from my experience, I would say no, because we are growing at our stage as an emerging economy.
Okay.
And I think that we're literally putting in the right building blocks to be able to move to the next technology. But you see, Francis, it comes to another question of, yes, new technology, but the question also is, this morning I'm not complaining that maybe sending an email is slow, or watching a movie is slow, or connecting to the internet and doing some virtual work is slow. So yes, it's new technology, it's greater, it's faster, but there's also a recognition of the fact that this is a technology that has been earmarked for things like smart homes and Internet of Things. So we're talking by means of smart home devices like security cameras, smart appliances. We're talking healthcare, supporting advanced healthcare technologies such as remote surgery, telemedicine. And the point is, it's actually going to do a lot more for the public service side. So we're looking at industrial use rather more than even customer use, because in places where there's like enhanced network capabilities, you're using this thing to improve maybe public services, like you're using it for traffic management, which is very, very important because it means that any slight buffer or mistake, there could be accidents. You're talking public safety on emergency response centers, making cities smarter. So that's like the intent of which experts see 5G being used for. So the use case for 5G does not really concern me and you too much, at the stage where we are because we are not deprived of having access and having access in the best way and form as we want it
Have it
right
today.
now. Yeah.
Okay. Now let's talk about what has been announced. So we're told the Sector Minister, Esla Osuekufu, announced that we're rolling out the 5G service by the end of last month, at least if I'm correct. They said they were partnering with 7 industry players to establish a shared infrastructure for 5G services with the aim of delivering affordable and high-speed mobile broadband service across Ghana. The 7 being Ascend Digital, KNet, Radisys, Nokia, Tech Mahindra, AT Ghana, and Telesol Ghana. What does this shared infrastructure mean for our telecoms industry today, Derek?
You see, so just to touch on from where you just came from, there's nothing wrong with building a shared infrastructure. Nothing, absolutely nothing wrong. I'm not against us basically harmonizing or having a direct or like building together like a core network that is literally managed by a number of entities that is going to provide service to a lot of Ghanaians. That's not a problem. The problem is the approach. The problem is the implementation. You see, when we talk about public policy, and somebody would ask, what is our interest with 5G? The 5G is for me and you. It's not for the ministry and the NCA. It's not for the president of Ghana. It's for all of us. So when we hear that the government is entering into a deal with our spectrum, the question that anyone will be asking is what level of consultation goes into the use of that resource. Today, you know the state of Ghana, you know the economic situation. Everybody is complaining. Things are high. The cost of goods are high, skyrocketing. People cannot afford 3 square meals and all of that. So you want to be cautious in how you use the little resources, because this is almost like a mineral. Okay? So just like we did with 3G, just like we did with 4G, 4G was sold for $67.5 million.
That's how much the country sold it for.
That's how much the first telco bought it for.
Okay.
The telco that bought 4G first.
Yes.
That's how much they bought it for. This with the
And I'm not sure it's not wrong for me to say that was MTN, correct?
Yes, that was MTN.
Okay.
No, it's not a secret.
Yeah.
It's MTN that bought it for 67 point. And basically, you put out an auction, you ask for the highest bid.
Yeah.
And MTN came up with the highest bid, and that's the amount that they quoted. And let's not mince words. Even in Ethiopia, when there was 4G auction more recently, MTN is there. Vodafone then, which was Vodafone then when MTN bid for 4G, Vodafone outbid MTN in Ethiopia. So I'm making this point because sometimes it's also a question of how the operator or the service provider sees the market. If you see value in the market, you put money into it.
Yeah.
If you do not see it as part of your long-term priorities, you like to stagger back and not really push too much, pump too much of your sweat into it. So MTN bought it for 67.5. Now the other question is this entity or this structure that we're saying has folks with powerful financial muscle, big companies like you mentioned, Tech Mahindra, Ascend. I know most of these companies.
KNS, Radisys, yeah.
Exactly.
Ascend Digital, yeah.
The question is, why are they paying 6.7 or 6.8 million dollars upfront? When we
Point 4G was over $60 million.
67, yeah, was $60 million. So then we made to understand that it's about 100 million, but they will pay. There's a structure. But here's my issue. If 7 companies put together and we are told they have financial muscle, cannot come up with 100 million upfront or 100 and whatever upfront, but we are told that they are paying 6 point something and then they will use the rest of the money they have to do infrastructure rollout. That tells that there's a problem. I don't know how I would pass this respectfully if I'm the minister. Because if I'm a minister today, I will call the 3 telcos to a round table, and tell them, this is our 5G spectrum. First of all, we need to value what the 5G spectrum is for us as a country. I've not heard any figures from government at this time. What is the value of the mineral that we are selling or we are entering into a deal with? Like we're doing with lithium. People know the value of the lithium. People know the value of the oil before they mine.
Yeah.
So if we're entering into a deal with the 5G, the question is, what is the value of that 5G resource? Now, when we know the value, we can then put it up front and say, this is our equity as government. So maybe you bring the other equity based on how we've defined the structure of the common platform, common platform that we are building to cost us. Maybe it's going to cost us maybe plus infrastructure, operational cost, maybe it's going to be $1 billion. And then we say our equity in here is maybe 200 million. So the 800 million has to be found. So bring that equity, or let's start from somewhere and basically amortize some costs into the future.
Yeah.
And then with this structure, what happens is that then we can say the 3 operators should bring that cost together. Bring your own partners. We don't want to get involved in that as a government. We would hold maybe 40% or 50% equity. And the SCA can hold that on behalf of the government or the state. And me and you, that's me and you.
Yeah.
And then the remaining 50% is given to the 3 operators. But when I see a structure where one of the main operators that says they have a ready 5G network and they can actually go 5G this afternoon because they've done it in Nigeria, and they are not out of they are out of the arrangement, and we're hearing that it's been announced in India, they've signed things in India and all of those things. The question is, what is going on? Then you are told that, well, they could not reach a deal with MTN. Then also we are told that we're trying to use this arrangement to correct a market imbalance. That market imbalance, we need to ask ourselves very deep questions, because, Francis, in 2021, the Minister of Communications announced MTN as a significant market player.
An SMP.
And as part of that significant market player thing that they did, they came up with about 7 different conditions that MTN was supposed to meet. Interconnect fees are supposed to be a couple of long, and then basically you cannot have the highest price in the market for any service. So the impact of that declaration meant that even if you are buying MTN 350 Ghana cedis broadband, mobile broadband, that you get maybe 300 gig, it suddenly has moved from 300 gig to 98 gig because MTN had to increase their prices to be able to be compliant with the regulatory directive. That begs a question: that is the monopoly hurting me and you? Is it hurting me and you? Because if the price is cheap, and now because they are being declared a monopoly, they have to now increase prices so that the consumer has to pay more. Then the argument is, what's the impact of all of that declaration? Then after that declaration, all the seven conditions have been met by MTN. And even aside meeting them, they continue to invest. So in 2022, this company said we're going to invest 1 billion for the next 5 years. They've been investing 100 million year on year since 2017, when I used to work in the sector directly. So it comes to a certain point that profit is not a bad word. Same as doing hard work to earn that profit is not a bad word. But unfortunately, in this scenario, it seems to look as if MTN is being punished, and that punishment is hurting me and you. And that's why I'm concerned, because I'm not concerned about MTN much more like I'm concerned about my father and my mother, and they being able to afford great telecom services at the right price. So we've gotten to that point where now MTN is out of, we say we're correcting market imbalance. I respectfully tender in my position that I do not think that this deal is going to correct market imbalance. That's the first one. The second point is that we're told by the minister that this structure that has been cooked is going to lower the cost of data. That's a very populistic approach to looking at the key issues on the ground. Why am I saying?
But practically, can it lower it?
It cannot lower it. And let me give you a scenario. If you are selling wachi, and I'm selling wachi across you, and I'm the one maybe selling cheaper, people are buying from me a lot more. Then government says, why are people not buying too much from the Francis? We have to correct the market imbalance. In correcting the imbalance, don't we prop Francis up? No. We set up a whole new store, a whole new wachi store. And then we say we to work with Francis in one way or the other. When would that entity, those 5 people that you mentioned, plus Airtel, Tigo, and Telecel,
Yes.
when are they going to make money to come and for Airtel, Tigo, and Telecel to also make money, for them to now lower prices? It doesn't. And we're talking 10 years, and this is a 10-year arrangement. I'm actually worried because there are Ghanaian entities involved. And when I see companies being set up to, for the want of a better word, you see that they're going to fail, it's important that we say it openly, that I don't think this is going to work, because I've sat in here for a while and I know what it looks like. This is an industry that eats capital expenditure by the day, by the minute. So I do not know. It's not a question of financial muscle alone. It's a question of a business case. If the business case does not exist, you cannot use government policy. You cannot use financial muscle to create it. It doesn't exist. It requires a lot more work to create it. And it's not just about being cooked, a deal being cooked up and said, come and do this and you can be able to do this. And that's not it. The market today is not hungry for 5G. The market is hungry today for better quality of service, better quality of experience. And no matter the speeds, if it's decent within even 3G, it works. Let me tell you a story about how MTN got the numbers that they have today. It's not even a question of MTN bought 4G in 2016 or 2015 that made them made them a monopoly. In 2012, this is 12 years ago, for maybe those who are still not, who can remember, the regulator issued a directive that all telecom companies, then there were 4, Airtel, then Tigo, then Vodafone, then MTN, all of you roll out 3G in every district capital in the country. And they said they would sanction people if you do not meet the directive. MTN fully complied. I cannot say same
for the other 3.
For the other 3, because I was in the sector, I know exactly what was going on. MTN fully complied. And they went to look for money. Others also went to look for money. Whether they invested, I can't say for them, but it's obvious that the evidence is on the ground. So I was going to say Trey Songz. Some people are bringing Trey Songz. And what we saw out of that is that MTN said we have complied. I think they issued a statement 7 months or 6 months to the deadline, and said we have fully complied with rolling 3G in every district capital in the country, even in the bush and places where there are no more. There are very few people. They rolled out infrastructure there. Then they said at the end of that statement, on the back of complying with this directive, we have realized that we have increased our subscriber base by 1 million.
By complying.
So complying with a regulatory directive became an advantage. The others did not fully comply. The regulator did not sanction anybody. I remember then.
12 years ago.
Into 11 years ago. Because it went again, they had a year or year and a half. They had a 1 million subscriber base increase, shoot up. Now with that shoot up, what means that they had over demand on the capacity that they had created. So when the 4G came up, it was a business decision. We need to buy the 4G because we have to provide a great service. We need spectrum to serve the 1 million that has come on. In buying the spectrum, everything else followed. So if you know the story carefully, it's not like as if MCN gets up in the morning, goes around, looks for market share on the floor and collects and takes it to their office, or they go to the other telco's office, go and beat them up and take the market share. It's a process that we've all witnessed, and it has turned into what it has turned into. And so if you decide to correct it, I think, don't correct it to hurt the consumers, because the consumers are not complaining even if MTN has 90% market share and the rest are sharing 10. If you go to Dubai today, there are 2 telcos, Etisalat and Du. One is doing 67, the other is doing 33% market share. The Du is not complaining that Etisalat is a monopoly. They've been living harmoniously over the last 12 years since I started going to the UAE. So it's not a question of there's the monopoly. If it doesn't hurt you, it doesn't hurt you. And the point is with the monopoly, sometimes what I've noticed in this sector is the monopoly actually now gives you better value because they're doing well, so they can pass on that value to you very easily. But if you're not coming to start a new telco and prop up a new network, when does the network become valuable? When do they raise money from credits and data in 10 years to now come and say that we will lower our services? And then the issue why I say this will not correct the imbalance is that the market is not matured for 5G at this time.
How so?
How so? Because the number of devices that are even 5G in this country, if we run a research, I can say off the top of my head will not be up to 5%. 5G enabled devices.
Yes.
How many 5G phones do you see around? How many people can afford them? 4G, yes, maybe to a great extent. And I'll give you an example. Let me just go back to India. Because you've had the guys with the financial muscles, a lot of them are coming from India.
Yes.
The story of India is that today, the commercial value of 5G is not known. It's not known because it's still at its nascent stage. It's growing. People are now beginning to get onto it. MTN is doing 5G in Nigeria. I think close to almost getting to a year. They've been rolled out 5G in Nigeria. Ask them if they are making money. They're not making money. No telco is making money apart from those who are selling the antenna that they're using for the 5G. Nobody's making money from 5G. The commercial value is still not known. So it's still a growing phenomenon, a growing technology. So in India, between Jio and Bharti, Jio Reliance and Bharti Airtel, they two of them, between them, they have rolled out 435,000 cell sites for 5G as at March 2024 at a cost of about $15 billion. But 5G, they call it elusive. In India today, they call it elusive 5G models. It's still not commercially viable at this time. So in their hometown, in where they come from, where they gave birth to them, that they became their billionaires, they can't score goal. It is Ghana that they can come and put the ball in the net. It's not that easy, you see. And then also back to the point about within India today, the total value of 5G enabled devices, that they are 1 point something billion population that they have there.
Yeah.
Total value of 5G devices is at 15%.
15%.
15%. You can go and do your own Google it and check it. 15%. As at March this year, they are looking to grow that base by 25% at the end of next year, 2025. So when you sign a contract for 10 years for Ghana, and you say you are coming to roll out 5G and you think you will make money.
It's not that simple. Okay, but within that same breath, let me just ask this. So if today, and the evidence suggests that the majority of subscribers onto internet services in Ghana are largely with MTN, they are getting 4G. If there is a case made for MTN to decide to want 5G, it means what? They have to go back and buy a part of the spectrum from this consortium?
So technically, that's what it looks like. So we're talking about putting together a 5G shared device, shared network.
Yes.
So right now, MTN does not appear to be it. And look, this model, it's almost like an SPV. So you basically have an SPV that is made up of a consortium of operators.
Yes.
And I think the most unique case was, I think, Malaysian DMB. They had this particular type of structure because with that one, they had a possible participation of the government. And government is holding 7.5% of this arrangement. And that's
for the Malaysian model?
No.
This one?
For this one.
Okay.
Ghana government took, for me and you, Francis, Ghana government said, we will take 7.5% of this arrangement. And then we handed 62.5% to private people. And then the remaining 30%, we left it for Airtel, Tigo, and Telecel at this time. That's not how I'll use my equity. That's not the equity I'll take if I believe this for me. I'm not going to take 7.5% of this arrangement. I won't do it. That's what I'm saying. I have my own issues with the structure. Although I don't have a problem with a consortium of operators creating an SPV that will literally manage a shared 5G network and whatever it is. So the Malaysian model basically also, I think it has like 5 network operators, and they all take equity alongside with the government, some government agencies that join into it. Now, by taking equity, what literally means that the participating players can even have a seat at the table in governance, and then also the operations of the network.
Yeah. Then
also the network will be shared by all the players, and everybody would own or operate its own cloud native network. Like it's all these technical things. They will own their own network within the consortium built there.
Okay.
Now, the issue about this thing is, if you don't take care, what happens is that the competition dynamic sometimes shifts to a more service-based competition rather than facility-based, because people are more interested in what they can be able to do for their consumers rather than even investing in growing that network. It becomes, people can easily lose sight of, it's like you're building your own network, then you feel like now you're a group of people building. Let me focus on the consumer more. And then you probably lose sight of the technical part that is required to continue to enhance it. So it's a model, it exists. Now there's so many different types of models for this. But the only issue or concern we have is the structure that we've entered into and our stake. That's why I have an issue with.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel that it feels more of a raw deal rather than the best deal. Because for me, I do not care whether a company was created this morning and they were given a contract this afternoon. We can leave that to the procurement lawyers
to
deal with and debate. And if it sounds financially, ethically okay, I don't want to run a company that I sign a contract a week and get a deal like this, because everything hurriedly put together for a serious issue in a serious sector that literally a company that has like MTN alone, I think, has invested between 6 to 7 billion in the last 25 years. If you look at that magnitude of the investment, tell me how many entities in this country, we will not count 5, that have invested even 5 billion in this market. So it's a very serious sector. It's a very serious.
And we're talking $1 billion here.
We're talking $1 billion.
Okay.
In over 2 decades. If you put the other telcos together, I'm sure it could probably run close to 10 billion. So it's a very serious sector. That's about an eighth of your GDP. An eighth of your GDP. So it's not the kind of sector that you even hurriedly rush into entering into such deals with. You need that. There's a need for consultation. There's a need for market engagement, because I strongly believe, based on my own experience and understanding of the sector, that in some instances, people understand the sector even more than those who are sitting in positions within the sector. And that's why public policy requires public engagement. Public policy requires town halls. It requires consultation. Then you can be able to ensure that whatever structure, whatever arrangement, whatever vehicle is being designed is definitely going to answer the painstaking problems that hurts or creates gaps in the market.
Now, is it possible, and this is a very hypothetical case, but I need to ask, is it possible that we could have this 5G rolled out and the majority who are on the 4G spectrum would enjoy better service than those who are on 5G?
I can answer that by giving you a practical example. Today, there are some places in Ghana that people are enjoying 3G services, which are actually much more better than when they switch on to 4G. So it's very possible.
You don't say.
I'm saying it because, for all you know, sometimes the device itself is not 4G
enabled, or
it's not overly 4G. It's not, the device is not strong enough to even manage the 4G network on it. So I have instances. I'm sure if people are listening to us, you can ask them. There are sometimes that people have called their network providers that maybe they are struggling with their data, and they've asked them switch to 3G, and the people don't call back because they find the 3G to be fast enough to deal with their issues. So yes, you're right that 5G is not the means to an end. So the 3 reasons why we're doing this: 1, to create a market to fix a market imbalance. I've told you it won't fix it. 2, to lower the prices of data. It's an imaginary expectation. It will not happen. 3, we've spoken about create employment opportunities. How many jobs is Ascend Digital coming to create here? It's the same people in the telco sector that you see that are currently working that will run there. And we've done it. We've done these things for almost close to 2 decades. We know how it always works. So the things that we are asking, or the main objectives that we say we are doing this. It's as if it's a table. It appears to be a 2-legged table. It's shaking. It's not strong enough.
So, based on what you know, should this deal be put on ice and looked at again?
If left to me alone, yes, I would wish that things have been signed at this stage. So, for me, I would ask that the private company should quickly look into bringing in everybody that is required. Because right now, with MTN out of the table, what it means, and I know this deal is, it has an exclusivity clause on it. That simply means that even if government changed hands tomorrow, and even if it's MPP government, it's still a different government. The point is, that new government cannot even say that we're going to make MTN do their own 5G.
They can't touch it.
They have to wait for 10 years. So if this one is going to be ready with their 5G in 6 months, it means that MTN has to find a way to get into this arrangement one way or the other. And so it's overly too making. And that's why I'm saying that for private entities that are local, Ghanaian entities, this has happened before in 2014 when we handed over broadband wireless access licenses like confetti to Surf Lines, Telesol, if you remember, Blue 4G, Gold Key, and the rest. All of these entities, about 10 of them, today do not exist. They ended up coming back to sell their licenses to existing telecom companies because they need the spectrum. And they never rolled out. Those who rolled out failed because what is required to run a telco is not what is required to run an oil and gas business. the
dynamics are
the
different.
dynamics are completely different. So you realize that every single month you are saddled with maybe a $2 million or a $5 million bill, even if you're operating in just Accra alone. I was saying that some telcos that some of those BWs were doing AT&T, Accra, Tema, and Teshi. That's where their service were. So it's not simple like that. And so when I see somebody says you sign a 5G, and then now even if you look at the license authorization, you see 4G and 5G. 4G has been put on the letterhead that is 4G and 5G. So now there are also other questions I'm asking myself. So does this arrangement allow this platform to now have 4G? Then the question now is, that will be literally saying that you bought your spectrum for $67.5 million. You've had a first mover advantage. Vodafone joined at some point. Vodafone is also rolling out 5G. Airtel Tigo has not paid anything. Subsequently, Airtel Tigo would be able to jump onto this platform and have access to 4G and 5G.
At no cost.
What kind of balance? It's almost like every day we are shouting women empowerment. Before you know, you've left men empowerment in there as well. And so the truth is, at no cost, or even if at some cost, you see, and then also just to say, Vodafone today has government shares in there.
Yes.
So if Vodafone is failing, it's government's contribution to the failure, because government controls, I think, 30% of Vodafone. So when there's a cash call to invest, and then they decide we are going to invest, I remember sometimes they were looking for $300 million or so. We are going to invest, even just for calculation, we are going to invest $100 million. It means that government of Ghana has to bring $30 million. They are sitting on the board. Has government contributed 1 CD since they earn that share? No, but they are expecting to take dividends. So in one breath, the market itself requires a review. It requires a realignment. It requires a rejig. It requires a complete overhaul of some of the existing nuances that is hurting its growth. And it's not just about coming up with this structure to come and compete with market. No, there are painstaking issues. There are issues where we have a company like GIFIC, which is an agency, Ghana Investment Fund for Electronic Communications. They are building cell sites in rural communities. GIFIC is funded by the same telcos. The cost for which the telcos, example, if MTN is now going to rent or lease a cell site in the bush somewhere, maybe let's say at the back of Hohoi somewhere, if it's a GIFIC site, that lease is sometimes twice the cost what MTN will pay when they lease with their existing private players, like ATC Ghana, Eaton, now it's now changed, but Helios, and cool. It's twice the price. A site in the bush, a site that was built with their money, because GIFEC is funded not by government, it's funded by telecom operators, 1% top line revenue. That's what goes to GIFEC, and they run on that. So we could start by refixing some of these things to correct what we call low data prices, rather than imagine that creating a whole new network can give people a new. Because I've said this thing time and time again. I remember in 2015, when I married, I took a trip to Dubai, and we're driving to Fujairah. We're listening to radio, internet radio, and then we had the minister had, I think it was then Dr. Manebo had launched the one busy 4G.
Yes, busy 4G.
And I could replay what he said. He said, today Ghana has licensed and launched a new telecom company. What is going to happen is that competition is going to go up, and when competition goes up, prices will come down. Let's stop doing that.
9 years on,
it's rudimentary economics. If 5 people are selling wache at this table, there's a price that will never come below. We will never tear below maybe 2 cedis. Everybody will tear above 2 cedis. So the fact that you make the 5, come and add 10, another extra 5 wache sellers, does not mean that because they are 10, somebody will now will sell at 1. There's a price point you will never fall below. And that's why I'm calling it rudimentary economics. So it's not the kind of sector that you even need too many players. You rather need few profitable players, because when they are profitable, then they can pass on value. So even from the regulatory side, we need a whole new regulatory economics arrangement, where we look at the market from an economic standpoint and ask ourselves, is this thing going to grow, or does it need an overhaul? Because left to me alone, 2 players will just be enough for me and you
for Ghana
market. Yes.
Now we have more than that. Okay, Derek, I thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you very much, my brother,
and for joining us. Learn a thing or two about this entire 5G operation. What's not working, what must work, and what we should do going forward. Thanks for your time and for joining us.
Thank you, my brother. Have a good day.
E.T.